Hi, I'm Kathy and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be guiding you through a prenatal yoga sequence to help relieve SI joint pain. Let's begin. For this sequence, I recommend using a block. If you don't have a block at home, you can replace it with a throw pillow or a thick book. That can also work. Now this practice focuses on SI joint pain or sacroiliac joint pain. It's very common in pregnancy, and it starts off as lower back pain, but it's not through the broad band. It's actually on one side or the other in those little dimples in the back of the spine. It could be either on the right side or the left side, and that's caused by the pelvis either tilting forward or backward. So it's not completely balanced, and that causes the pain. Now, because in pregnancy the joints have so much laxity in them because of the relaxin hormone, it's very common and a lot of people experience this. So this sequence will help you stabilize the pelvis, and some things that you can do to help is to keep the pelvis neutral through the practice, perhaps throughout your day, and then also practicing internal rotation. As opposed to external rotation. That does help. I'll show you an example of a posture that would aggravate SI joint pain. Coming into Pigeon Pose, and I'd like to show you what that looks like so that you could see. You could bring that right foot forward, left foot back, and I'm just demonstrating this. If you're feeling SI joint pain, please don't do this. And here you can see how one side of the pelvis is tilting forward and one side is tilting back, and it's in an extreme opposition. So that would really make it more painful. So instead of something like this, you could do something more neutral for the pelvis, something more stable, like a double pigeon pose. So that would look like this. And this is a much more, you're still getting that hip stretch, but this is a much more neutral position for the hips. So that is what the practice will look like today, just bringing that neutral pelvis, or bringing the pelvis into neutral, and then using the block for support, coming into internal rotations, and using the block between the thighs to kind of guide back that stability in the pelvis. So, beginning with the block in Hero's Pose or Modified Hero's Pose, you can put the block on the first level or the second level. I'm going to use the second level between the feet in a Virasana Modified Heroes. And that'll go right underneath the sits bones. If you have two blocks, you could even stack two blocks, one on top of the other. Might even be more comfortable. Knees are forward. This is a good posture for circulation. And we'll begin here, palms on the thighs or palms around your baby. Shoulders over hips, long spine, chin parallel to the floor. Close the eyes or soften your gaze. Notice your breathing pattern. And now extend your breath. Take a few deep breaths in and out. Soften through the tailbone. Lengthen the spine. And stay here for a couple more breaths. Gently blink the eyes open if you had your eyes closed. And if your hands are wrapped around your baby, soften the palms to the thighs. Lean forward now into tabletop position to hands and knees. And you can also use a blanket here for extra padding on the knees, especially if you're on a hard surface. Now taking the block, place that between the thighs. A gentle squeeze. We're not really putting too much force into that. Palms underneath the shoulders, moving into cat and cow, soft, tops of the feet soft on the floor. On the inhale, heart comes forward, look forward, heart between the arms. And on the exhale, round in the spine, soften the tailbone, look towards your block, and bring the thighs towards the block. Lean back into the heels. This will create a broader opening through the lower spine. Inhale, extend forward. Exhale, flex back. Bring the thighs towards the block and lean back into the heels. Notice that support. It'll feel a stretch there. You'll feel a stretch in the lower spine. Inhale, open. Cow. Exhale, round back for cat. A rocking cat-cow with a block in between the thighs. 2 more at your pace with your breath. Notice how that feels in the SI joint with the extra support of the block. Now bring the block to the front. We'll be using that a lot today. Take the knees out wide to leave room for your baby. Big toes touch. Sit back in the heels and come into Balasana, child's pose. Palms can stay on the floor, or you can bring the forearms down or come all the way down on the forehead. The block might be nice here too to create some more space between you and the floor. Rest in child's pose and notice how the pelvis is in a neutral position. Soften the lower spine towards the mat. And feel a deep release through your lower back. A few quiet breaths in child's pose. Return to all fours, back to tabletop position. Adjust the block forward and readjust the knees so that they're underneath the hips. If you did have some padding underneath the knees, you can place that to the side for a moment. And come into downward facing dog. Now, if you're not comfortable being upside down, you can come back into the rocking cat-cow. Place the block in between the thighs, hands come forward, a palm print forward, curl the toes under, send the hips up, and notice how you have a little more support in between the thighs. Send your energy towards the block. The tailbone extends back, and then the sits bones lift and widen. Notice how my heels are still high so that you can focus on extending the spine first. Rotate the shoulders away from the face. Press into the palms, extend the sides of the arms, the sides of the waist. And then perhaps you add the heels. Or you could stay just like this. Now, you are not necessarily squeezing the block, but become aware of how it supports you in this position, especially through the SI joint. One more breath. And release both knees to the ground. Now take the block right underneath your belly or underneath the face there. You'll use it in just a second. You can put it on the highest level. And now open the knees as wide as the mat to transition up to standing. Walk the hands back to the knees, come onto the heels. You can even move that block a little closer to you. Then bring the forearms to the thighs, feet on the floor, toes pointed forward, knees pointed forward. And place that block now between the thighs again. Come up slightly, but not to a standing position. And you can walk the feet a little bit closer or heel toe the feet a little closer. So now that block is going in between the thighs here. Hands by the block with the fingertips facing one another. Standing cat-cow. Inhale, open. Exhale, round through the spine. Send your tailbone towards the block. Just a few standing cat-cows. Open the chest and heart. Exhale, round. Inhale, extend through the spine. Exhale, flex. Release, soften in the tailbone, And I know that you're feeling that in the legs. Extend through the legs, release the block, and come to standing. You can come to the center of the mat if you'd like. Place the block between the hands. Inhale, lift up overhead and extend the entire spine. Extend the arms. And make a large space for baby. Exhale, slowly bring the arms in front of the shoulders. And we'll do that a couple more times. Inhale, lift high. Exhale, lower. One more. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. All the way down this time. And readjust for standing Tadasana just for a moment to feel your awareness through the feet, through the spine, soften the knees, stack up hips and ribs or ribs over hips, open chest, chin lifted, extend through the crown of the head. One deep breath here. And soften that tailbone to provide even more of a stretch through the lower back. Now bring the block in between the thighs again. Told you we would use it a lot today. And then come into chair pose, hands to heart. Inhale, exhale, sit back into that chair. And again, you're not purposely squeezing the block, but it happens naturally with the block in between the thighs. There's this energy coming towards center, which broadens the back and gives you that release in the SI joint. Now soften the tailbone without swaying the back. Soften tailbone towards the mat, and then the thighs come towards the block for more support. Hands to heart center, knees forward, toes forward. So just sit here in chair's pose. That's a lot of work happening. You can come a little bit lower or stay right at the center. If you'd like to add some arm movement, that does help with sensation when you're feeling lots of sensation. Inhale, lift the arms up overhead. Exhale, lower all the way down to the side. Two more. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. One more. Release through the legs. You can grab that block. Come back to Tadasana, standing pose. One more cleansing breath in and out. And now switch over to the wide edge of your mat. Open the feet wider than the hips. Heel toe them out even a bit more for an internal rotation. So wherever you're comfortable, it doesn't have to be super wide, but we're going to bring the toes slightly pigeon-toed, but not just the feet. Feel that rotation happening in your hips. So the hips are internally rotating, and then the block is underneath the hands. Slowly shift forward, bend at the hip creases, come down towards the mat, and place your hands at the top of the block. Again, internally rotate from the hips and notice how that feels around the lower spine and especially around the SI joint. Toes coming towards center. Pause here. If it's available, you can lower the block to the second level, come a little closer to the ground, maybe even bend the elbows. Pause wherever you're most comfortable. Long spine. And continue that internal rotation towards center. You can even move the block a little bit forward in front of the face or a couple inches forward as well. A few more breaths. Slowly come back. Keep the hands on the block or at the highest level here. Heel toe the feet a bit closer, but not all the way together. Enough to where they're more than hip width apart. Bend into the knees. Bring the forearms to the thighs for one breath. Then fingertips to the mat, one knee down at a time. Slow transitions to the floor. Always here. And then come back into your sitting on your blanket. You can sit on your blanket or your throw pillow for some more internal rotation. Windshield wiper the legs. Bring the legs straight out in front of you. Open them wide. Hands behind, leaning into the palms. And windshield wiper the legs to the left and then to the right. I'm mirroring you. And notice how that feels. A lot of the focus in yoga is on external rotation, so we don't get a lot of these internal stretches, but they can be very beneficial for SI joint pain. Now stay here on the left side. Both knees are on the left. Notice how that feels. You can lean back, hold here. Or if you'd like some more sensation, if you want to feel deeper into that internal rotation, lift your left leg up and bring it on top of the knee, a little closer to the thigh, and that'll add some extra pressure. Flex through the heels. Keep lifting the chest so that you're not collapsing into the shoulders. One more breath. Release if you have the leg on top, and then move to the other side. Back and forth, and rest now on the other side. So if the back of the wrists feel comfortable, you can always come onto your fist behind you to release or switch the hands. Now feel the internal rotation on this side. You can also take the right leg on top, this one. Flex through the heels. And this is on top of the knee, a little closer to the thigh. It does add some extra weight and pressure, so be mindful. Keep the breath active. Now release. Uncross the leg, come back through center. Extend the legs forward, flex in the heels. Shake out the wrist. There was some tension in the wrist there too from leaning back so long. And then coming into double pigeon as our last pose today, we talked about in the beginning how traditional pigeon would be way too extreme for the pelvis. So this would be a neutral way of getting the same stretch. Bring that left knee in and out, cross it over. Looks like a number 4 with the legs. Lean back, either into a figure 4 seated position, so that's the option, or you can come into that double pigeon, bringing the bottom leg underneath and then stacking the shins one on top of the other. Now another option, since you do have the block, is to bring your block in front of that right knee, and do it this way too, and place the top leg there. So a little less intense, but you're still getting a nice hip stretch. Hips are neutral, and you can lean forward as well if you'd like for this position. Deep breaths. Notice where you may be holding tension and consciously relax that area. Shift back through center. Move out of double pigeon on this side, coming onto the opposite side, hands back. So you'll return to the seated figure 4, lower the bottom leg, and then uncross. Bounce in the knees. Take that right knee in this time, balance on the other side, cross into that number 4, seated figure 4, flexing in the heel. And this is a good stretch too for the hip. And still neutral enough for SI joint. Or you bring that bottom leg underneath and hold double pigeon. So this is an option, or using the block to kind of lessen the intensity there, you can place the top leg on that block in front of the left knee. Sit up tall or lean forward. Shift back to center. Remove the block. Lean back into the hands, back to your seated figure 4. Lower the bottom leg and then uncross. Bounce through the knees and windshield wiper the ankles. Come into an easy seated pose. And that's different for everyone. That could be the way I'm sitting, or maybe your ankles are crossed, feet flexed. That might be more comfortable. Or you can have one leg extended and then the other. Just trying to stay a little more symmetrical with the pelvis, but whatever helps you to feel more comfortable. And now place the hands around your baby. Take a few deep breaths together to end the sequence. Notice the sensations around your spine, especially around the lower back and into the SI joint. One more cleansing breath. If your eyes are closed, open the eyes, hands to the heart, completing our practice today. I thank you for joining me, and I thank you for allowing me to guide you.